So many thanks to Xu Wang and to her selected designers. This is a very good start to the day. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I have to introduce myself every time I come up and speak. My name is David Walker. I'm the director of the program here at the Design Shanghai Forum in association with M.A.D China and with Cola. Normally with events like this, or indeed with anything like a music event or a concert, we have top of the bill at the end of the week. This time we have top of the bill at the very beginning of the week, because it is a true delight for me as a writer and commentator about design for 20 years to welcome one of the world's most distinguished figures in design, a multidisciplinary designer, products, interiors, fashion. Karim Rashid has, I would say, changed the face of modern design. One of the reasons why he's here is that he's launching kitchen design he's done for Rational, a German company. So make sure you go and see his work in the kitchen and bathroom section of the exhibition. But right now, right here, ladies and gentlemen, a rare and wonderful opportunity to hear Karim Rashid.
Hello, thank you. I thank Design Shanghai for inviting me and all the sponsors who brought me here. I'm grateful, and I only have 30 minutes, which is very tight, because usually I speak for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. So we'll do it in 30 minutes. We'll try something. Design. Let's talk about design, and I need to say this very quickly and briefly. We need to understand what design is, the subject of design. And what is design? It's not a superficial or superfluous act. It's not borrowing from history. It's not going into the archives of history and appropriating or making derivatives of ideas. Design, simply put, is to work with contemporary criteria to shape the future. So if you design a project today, and it really doesn't matter what you do, no matter what you work on, no matter what you do, no matter what you touch of everyday life, design is about taking that contemporary criteria and using it and designing solutions that can actually be a betterment of society. Now I'm going to go way back. Definition of design originally was for the betterment of society. So design is a social act, obviously a creative act, it's a political act, it's an economic act. And design shapes our lives and shapes everyday experiences. So what do I do when I design? This is how I think about a project. The minute I speak with a client and they start to tell me about their brand or about what kind of product they produce, what kind of material they have, what kind of capabilities they have, what their brand history is, what their market is, this is what starts to shape for me the ideas of what I'm going to do. So, in other words, design is not a selfish act. I don't get to do whatever I like to do. I have to listen, and I have to collaborate, and I have to work closely with companies to try to understand what their agenda is. At the same time, I need to find my soul, my position in the world, what I'm going to contribute, and what I can say and offer. Because if I don't, if I'm not working from within me, then the company can work with anybody. And what differentiates all of us, obviously, is our fingerprint, which is our intellect, our experiences, and the way we observe the world. Now, the way I try to observe the world is simply put, once I understand all that criteria, all those issues, then I can start to kind of shape an object or a product. I'll give you an example of this. if you're going to work on a chair, design a chair, and I meet a company, and the company has a certain culture or a certain market. Let's say the company is a company that produces inexpensive products and reaches a more larger mass audience. The first thing that I have to do when I think about the chair is that I have to develop a chair that's going to be at a certain price point to meet that company's market. So what do? I think, well, what materials could I use? Well, I could use inexpensive polymers. And what's a good inexpensive polymer? Maybe polypropylene, maybe something else. I could think about a polymer maybe that's very environmental. For example, I just recently did a chair in Brazil that's made or derived from sugar. So even though the chair is made from polypropylene, the origins of the plastic come from sugar, not from oil. So then I could think about using responsible material, smart material. Second thing I can do is say, okay, if it's polymer, then it's going to be cheap, and I'll use a process that makes an inexpensive chair. For example, it could be a co-injection mold, it could be an injection mold, it could be blow molded. There's many different kind of processes where I can make something at a cost price that would meet my client's market. Third, I could say, well, what's a chair today? And how does a chair kind of fit or become part of our culture and our society? And what can I do that'll actually offer the world a chair that doesn't exist already on the market? Because we're at a point right now where with 1.7 billion images disseminated every day, there's a lot of information. And there's a lot of work, and actually even something like an object like a chair, it's questionable whether we need to keep even designing it. How many chairs have been designed in the world? I would guess at least 1 million. Think about this, at least 1 million. At this fair, I don't know how much new furniture is being shown here, but if you go to Milano in April, you'll see 35,000 new objects every year. It's kind of a crazy number when you really think about it. So you say, well then, if you're going to design something, or you're going to design something, or you are we going to add something to the landscape that's actually going to improve the landscape? Could you design an object that could take away 3 objects? In other words, I call that addition by subtraction. Can you do something so good and clever and smart that it could remove other products from the world? In other words, could we dematerialize the world by offering better products? The next thing I could say to that company about the plastic chairs, social behavior. Look at us. Look at what's going on with the world. We live in a time called the age of casualism. Is that translatable? Okay. The age of casualism. And what is the age of casualism is? 50% of the world's running shoe market is running shoes. That's casual. Look at the way everybody's dressed around you. We become much more casual about the way we dress. In fact, our clothing and our commodity around us has become much more of a, I would call a high performance condition. Meaning we're more relaxed, we're more comfortable, we're using more technology in our clothing. And this is the world we're living in. The way we sit and our postures, we don't sit upright anymore. And a lot of people still, when they design chairs, use a very old ergonomic angle like Henry Dreyfuss used in the 1930s and 40s. And they make a chair very upright. But we don't really sit upright. You're not sitting upright. You push forward. We're more relaxed. So then I would say, okay, maybe I make the chair a little bit more relaxed, just a few degrees more. And maybe if I use the right polymer, the right material, I can get the chair to flex a little bit. And why would I want it to flex? Well, because if you sit on a hard surface, you cut off circulation. So if the chair moves a little bit, you won't cut off circulation. So maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe I take the chair and I cut a bunch of holes in it to remove material, to make it lighter. And why lighter? Because then maybe I can ship 4 in one small box and ship them around the world much cheaper. So all these kind of, let's say, really practical, pragmatic issues can end up shaping a completely new form, a completely new language. In other words, design shouldn't be about sitting down and starting out with a vernacular or language. Design should be about embracing all the contemporary criteria to end up with a new language. And we've spent the last 100 years searching for languages. And the design profession has been preoccupied with finding, quote, new language. Well, the danger of that is that a lot of times what we're finding is style, not language. And what is style? Style is when you borrow from history. So if tomorrow somebody came to me and said, we would like you to design a restaurant, and we would like it Belle Epoque-like, or we would like it Baroque-like, or we would like it turn of the century-like. This is style. This is not design at all. At all. In fact, it's what I would even call decorating. And decoration and style have nothing to do with design, because design shapes our human experiences, and it progresses and evolves us, and evolves humanity. Now, when you design something like when I design something like a mobile phone, or I design a smartwatch, or I design what I'm working on right now, a new airplane, these kind of products are only about using the most advanced, latest criteria. Latest materials, latest interaction, latest UX and IX design. Everything is new. And none of it has to do with history. Nothing. You never look back in order to produce this kind of commodity. So then why is it when we develop something like interiors, furnishings, even architecture, we go back and we so-called are inspired by history? We're not inspired. Derivation and appropriation is not inspiration. Where should we be inspired from? We should be inspired from the world in which we live now. 2017, the digital age. The digital age came about only 30 years ago. And the digital age is affording us to have far greater, more interesting, more inspiring, more communicative experiences than the physical world gives us. The physical world at one time gave us all our experiences. Today, the digital age gives us our experiences, which means the physical world is playing a secondary role now in our daily experiences. You could even argue that the physical world is starting to become uninteresting. In a way, it's starting to become a bit banal. And so what do we do to kind of work against the banality is we go into history and we start to copy. Because we see things, we see ideas, languages that aren't existing in the time in which we live. But what we need to do is develop these languages, these vernaculars, in the time in which we live. In other words, what we need to do is use design to catch up to our digital age. So let me give you an example. Digital age is doing this. We do more and more and more with less energy. We do more and more and more with less materiality. And the physical world is kind of doing this. It stopped growing. And why is it slowing down or stopping? Because all the energy, the money, the investors, business, move to the digital age because there's money to be made. Why else? Because there's opportunity. Why else? Because it's inspiring. It's inspiring tomorrow to develop an app. much more, you could argue, inspiring than developing a chair. It's inspiring because the digital age is thinking about, let's say, the human condition. If I develop an app, it's about us, about some sort of interaction, some sort of need that we need. So maybe we need to look back at the physical world and think about it in the same way. In other words, all the objects that we add to this world, maybe they need to have as much performance, functionality, and experience as the digital age is providing us. And the question is it possible? Could be possible. Now, since the digital age, for me, it's extremely inspiring, and I realize that when I look back at the history, let's say, of art and design, every object that was important, or every building that was important, was embracing a new technology. So artists, designers, architects always gravitated towards the new technology. So Eiffel, for example, who built the Eiffel Tower in 1843, it was new technology. Today, if you go to Paris and you see the Eiffel Tower, it looks like a kind of very archaic piece of rusted metal. It's not near as impressive as even some of the buildings that are in the city. But it was very iconic because of the time in which it was built. So we build a building today, we need to also embrace the same idea, that we build about the time in which we live. And you could argue the beauty of design is that we can understand and comprehend our history of humanity going back 50,000 years through artifacts, through objects. If the object spoke about the time in which we live. So what does that mean? If you today design a new product, a new object, and you bury it in the ground, and you come back in the year 3500, and you pull it out of the ground, and you say, do we learn about the civility of the time in which we lived? Does that object denote 2017? It probably will if it embraces a new technology. And a new technology could be a new technology of a material. For example, when Alvar Aalto bent a plywood chair, bending a plywood with a big radius in 1931 was new technology. When Mark Stam or Marcel Brauer in the Bauhaus built a chair out of steel tube, it was because in Dresden there was a bicycle factory bending steel tube. And they saw the bicycles and they said, oh, maybe we can make a chair. So if you think about it the same way today, you see a new technology, it can inspire you and afford you to do something original. And let me say, my obsession, I realized since I was born as a child, I want to do something original. And the artist's pursuit is to do something original. And even more so, let me just add to that, every one of us are capable of doing something original on this earth. And the reason we're all put on this earth is to create. And we create two ways. Procreation, to keep the human race surviving. Intellectual creation, the progress of the human race. So, in other words, we've all been given a different fingerprint. And why? Because we all are capable of doing something original. Now, if you don't think we were born, all of us, to create, then look at any child and watch the first thing that they want to do in this world is create. Be it with their fingers with paint, drawing, making things, imagination. All those are forms of creation. In other words, to be is to create. So now let's look at the design landscape, and let me ask you why a lot of times it isn't that creative. In fact, a lot of times, a lot of it is quite derivative. And I think that now that we're moving into this next decade, we're starting to saturate the world with derivatives. Too many things, too many things alike. Few ideas, many variations. Now, the other day I read about a solar glass that's invented by a professor in the University of Michigan. And the piece of glass is clear, but it's a solar panel. It's a brilliant technology. I'm doing a tower, a skyscraper right now in Rotterdam. I want to use this glass. In other words, I am spending my time hunting for interesting new technologies that are relevant to the time in which I live, that can add a lot to the world in which we live, that I can create a much more sustainable building with this technology. If I make an interior, for example, I decide to make a hotel, or a restaurant, or a cafe, anything I do, I need to think about the social behavior of the time in which I live. Gathering, how people sit, how they spend their time, how they walk into a room and spend their time in 12 square meters. Number one, so I kind of have to look at the social, experiential part of it. Second part of it is the technology, and it cannot afford me to make a more interesting, more beautiful, more poetic experience. The third part of it is to think about what I talked about, this kind of age of ease, of casualism. And I'm a big believer in this. I'm a big believer that everything around us, everything, should perform beautifully or it shouldn't exist. And everything around us should give us some better experience or it shouldn't exist. And a space, when I go into a space, I think a space should do the same thing. A space should be seamless. There should be no obstacles. No interruptions. Jean Baudrillard, the French sociologist, said that most of the time objects are obstacles in our lives. What does that mean? And he wrote this 30 years ago. The more things you have, the less free you are. The more objects you have, the less free you are. Because everything needs a certain level of care and maintenance and time. If you want to be really free, have nothing. I think about this every day. I should be able to come to Shanghai with my fingerprint. That's it. I should be able to buy everything in the world with my fingerprint. I should be able to exchange with you my information by touching your finger. That's it. That's freedom. The minute I have all that, I don't need pockets. I don't need passports and wallets and money and all these things. That's freedom. The world I would like to live in is a seamless world like that. You know, I design a lot of hotels, and a company said to me recently, they said, you know, every one of our hotel rooms are cleaned in 18 minutes. So I showed them a prototype room I did, and I said, first of all, I stayed in 3 or 4 of their hotels. You could never clean any of those rooms in 18 minutes. If you want to clean a room in 18 minutes, there probably should be no corners. So the floor and the wall should become one. And if you look at the origins of how we started to create dwelling and how we created dwelling, is we built caves with our hands. And we put caves with our hands, we ended up with an amorphous space, soft space. But the world of producing economically created a Cartesian world, a two-dimensional world. Because we could cut the straight lines with a saw, right? We could extrude, we could make ceiling panels, we could make carpet, we could make bricks, we could make tiles, and everything we started to create from the Industrial Revolution is two-dimensional. Because it was cheap to make. If you look at IKEA, for example, you could argue 90% of their catalog is 2D. It's all made from flat sheets. But the digital age has afforded us something very fascinating and interesting. When I started designing, I designed in analog, meaning I started out with no computers. And I drew everything in 2D. Top view, side view, plan view, bottom view. So look at the world that we created. We created a two-dimensional world because we designed everything in 2D. So 2D kind of gave us a 3D world, but it's actually two-dimensional. So when I designed, for example, a credit card for Citibank, it had to be 2D to fit into 1.6 million ATMs in the world. When I designed a stove for Garnier or a refrigerator for LG Electronics, it had to be two-dimensional to fit into a kitchen. When I design a kitchen, it has to be 2D to fit into the condominium or the apartment. And we created a massive Cartesian world. The whole world is Cartesian. So 2D gave us 3D. But then what happened? About 20 years ago, some software technologies came around with the digital age. It started to afford us to create and design in 3D. When we can design in 3D, we forgot about back, front, side view, top view, bottom view, because we see things dimensionally. And when we design things dimensionally in 3D, maybe, in theory, 3D will give us a fourth dimensional world. And the fourth dimension is time. And time for us is human experience. So as I stand on the stage, these few minutes will never come again, and they're the fourth dimensional moment. Every word I say can't really ever be repeated the same way. Now we have the software. Now we're starting to build the tools, i.e. rapid prototyping, et cetera, FDM machines, etc., to start building this 3D world. Why? Because we could design in 3D very well, but in industrial design we could actually produce 3D very well and inexpensively. But in architecture, it all made by hand. And I was always amazed. I was looking at a project of Frank Gehry in Los Angeles. I saw it under construction. And there were about 160 men on the roof with hammers hitting titanium panels to connect them all. When I was at Boeing in their factory watching a 787 plane being made, there were men on top of the Boeing plane with rubber hammers making sure that all the panels of aluminum fit together, because there were tolerances that were off. In other words, when we start producing these very complex pieces of architecture or complex objects, we still go back to the hand, because we haven't quite yet created an economic way robotically to manufacture this new 3D slash fourth dimensional world. But it's around the corner. And in the meantime, since I generally work on a lot of projects with very little budgets, I try to think about this 3D slash 4D world and try to start to, even if it's in ornamentation, even if it's in slightly the maneuvering or curving of walls, is to try to start to speak about this more ethereal, more amorphous, more poetic fourth dimensional world. And I try to design objects, spaces, buildings that can actually have some sort of relationship, a mirror, some sort of resonance to reflect this interesting age, digital age in which I live. So, design is an agent of change. Design can turn around and shape and create a better world for all of us tomorrow. We need to design cities. We need to design parks. We need to design transportation. We need to design everyday objects in our lives. But what we need to do with all this is to think about, at the end of the day, that it's all for the human experience. But we still tend to design in isolation, meaning we design objects and buildings and things that are supposedly very aesthetic, but they're kind of removed from human experience. That's why, to give you an example, is every hotel in the world, if you look at the photographs, they're empty. People sell hotels by a photograph of a bed in a room. Where are the people? Where are we? It's all for us. So this physical world that we shape is for us to have, hopefully, much more humanized, better experiences. And that's what design is. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you. I think we're going to do questions. Questions? Yes?
Thank
We
you,
are?
Karim, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you to put this on because most of the questions are going to be in Mandarin, so you want channel 2? I'm going to ask you a question which I'll give you. Yes, we can. Yeah. I was really interested in what you were saying about history. It was as if, I mean, I'm sure you don't actually mean us to completely ignore history, but tradition, legacy, craft, all these things, you're suggesting that we take, inspiration from the modern world, but I feel like a bit of a challenge to you really on that one, because I'm saying to myself, particularly in the Chinese context, where in my kind of limited understanding, modern Chinese design is working at the moment to understand its own contemporary aesthetic, but also to draw in its own tradition. And there's a very, very fine tradition, a very long tradition, obviously, in Chinese, not only craft but design. Plus, it leads us to the whole idea of craft. So there's actually kind of two questions in one, really, which is how is it that we can continue to go forward if we completely ignore history? Are you telling us to ignore it? And other thing is craft tradition, making things by hand. I personally don't think we can let it all go to the machine.
Okay, I'll answer the latter question first.
Yeah.
Anything the hand can do, the machine will replace. And frankly, if you look at the world's commodity right now, the majority of it is produced by a machine. So craft, which actually in the last 30 years has become a middle class kind of hobbyist experience in most parts of the world. So craft is questionable. Also, remember something about craft. A lot of people, what we call craft is not craft. Craft is when the maestro has spent 20 or 30 years honing his art and knowing the material inside and out, and perpetually experimentation. That's craft. And I'm going to give you an example. I was in Murano 10 years ago. I've done a lot of work in Murano, and Murano's shrinking every year. Okay, I saw a maestro who's 30 years blowing glass, and you know what he was doing there? Every day he was making a handle and putting it on the water pitcher, and he was making 500 of the same handle. The handle can be done by machine. That's not what his history of his experience. That's not where it should be applied.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And second of all, in the world of craft right now, craft is a little bit like vinyl for music. There's a bit of a revival, but the revival is not touching even 0.01% of the global economy of its effect. Okay, that's my first. Second of all, yes, if you want to be a really good designer and you want to shape a better world, I always say this, I said this to my students for many, many years, you learn everything you can about your subject and then forget it overnight. And the reason you need to forget it overnight, and this is the danger, and I bet you a lot of designers do this. Let's say you're going to design tomorrow something like, anything, I don't know, mention an object, whatever. We'll say a chair again. If you Google image, you're doomed. You'll never do anything original. In other words, at this point, the inundation of imagery, you cannot do anything original. So what you need to do, if you want to be inspired, is not to look at what's being done. And this was the mistake of fashion designers, by the way. And for many, many years, Italians, they call fashion designers stiliste, because they're stylists, they're not designers. Because they would look into the past for inspiration. You know, but in Italy, a designer is an architect.
Yeah.
Because an architect has to work with new structure, materials, etc., etc. So they're working in the present. So I think to be really a good designer and to do something original and of value, you have to be inspired not by looking at what took place, but the way the world works now. Social behaviors, as I mentioned, the age of casualism, the technologies, the materials that we're using today, the sustainable issues, ecological issues, you know, renewable sources. We have to look at all these things, and this is what is really the act of designing.
I would say that that originality depends to a large extent on absorbing influences and on coming up with responses to new problems.
Yes,
I
sure.
don't think originality is possible to create, you know, in a vacuum, completely separate from every influence, every visual or aesthetic or cultural influence.
No, of course not. I mean, you know, come on. For example, myself, I wasn't born yesterday, so I have a history of everything that influenced me. All my professors, every book I've ever read, since I was a child. These are inside you. But at the same time, you can't afford those to, let's say, shape your work. You need to really embrace, I think, a moment in time in which we live, if you want to do something original. You know, and I think the act of doing something original is actually the pursuit, the creative pursuit, in a way. And you could argue that somebody, for example, you could be a surgeon, but you're an artist because you're determined that you want to do surgery in an original way, find a new way of doing it, right? And a progression to evolve the profession itself. So.
Okay, good, thank you. Before I ask, I'm sure there are many questions. Can I just say one thing? There's one more thing I want to try out on Karim, is that I used to make furniture. I was a cabinet maker myself. I was not a designer, just somebody that works in drawings. But the craft thing, to me, it's interesting what you say about it being, a kind of comparatively limited importance, if you like, or relevance. But one of the things that I came to understand as I began to write more about it, rather than do it as such, is that design seems to me to be something that you do, an activity, whereas craft is more a state of mind, more like an attitude about how you want to create that thing, rather than creating itself.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. Listen, I'm not. The thing is, a lot of I always feel like people think I'm denouncing history, or more important, or even more so, like denouncing, for example, something like craft. I'm sure there are people in this world who want to do what you're talking about, fashion some material, make some beautiful things. Sure, there'll always be markets, but very, very small markets for this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's be honest about the world we live in. Let's look at everybody looking at their phones. 7.5 hours a day we look at screens right now. 7.5 hours a day. It's a fact, global fact. That means almost half your waking day you're looking at a screen.
Scary.
Okay, so this is the world I live in.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in all this. I spend my whole time reading. All I do is pretty well read about sociologists, I read philosophy a lot, but I'm interested in the human condition of the time in which I live, and I'm allowing that to inspire my work. And a lot of times I can't even find a direct correlation. Because the problem is design can be a very pragmatic thing. The minute you're asked to make a very specific object, there's some very simple pragmatics that get involved. So no matter how poetic you want to be, or how philosophical you want to be, or how much you want to say something, that's not the act of design. It's very tricky. If you're an artist, it's a different thing.
Yes.
And I always say, artists are the most selfish people on earth. Because they can do whatever the hell they like to do. They wake up in the morning, I'm an artist. Oh, I'm going to paint. Oh, I'm going to draw, or I'm going to throw shit against the wall. Whatever you want to do, you're an artist. Design, on the other hand, and it depends on what you're designing. If you're designing some sort of objects that are almost artistic, like, I don't know, vases or tabletop ware or ceramic ware, okay, you can kind of in there, you've got about 70-80% you, and the rest is the production and the material. But then as the pendulum swings the other way, if I design a hospital bed, or for example, right now I'm doing a hospital, the pendulum almost moves to the point of selflessness. And I say a selfless act because it's not about me at all now.
Yeah.
It's about the millions of people who are going to go in and out of that hospital.
Yeah.
And either die in it, or survive, or live and get out of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really the act of design. And it's, so I on a daily basis, I think about this pendulum. You know, how far can I go over to the selfish? How selfish can I be? And at the same time, if I want to make something successful, and I'm determined to, that's why I produce a lot of times I start swinging slightly towards the selfness. I have to let myself go. I was born an artist, meaning what I mean by that is my father was a painter. I was brought up in an environment that was all about art. I could have easily just become a fine artist. I decided to get into this difficult, pragmatic profession and make it go of it. In order for me to make a go of it, if I'm going to design something tomorrow and they're telling me they're going to produce 1 million a year, I'm touching a lot of people's lives, which means I have to be really sensitive to others. And it's almost not about me anymore.
Yeah. Very good. Karim, thank you so much.
Maybe a question in the audience?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, where should we start? I think I've noticed this person first. You can speak in Mandarin if you like, or in English is easy if you speak English.
Wait. 我之前看过您的一个纪录片，就是采访您的叫《设计面面观》（Objective Guide） 那部纪录片。然后那部纪录片里面有另外一个设计师啊，他此前也是工业设计师，后面他从事做交互设计。然后他在那个纪录片里面说了一句话，说，我设计了一个笔记本电脑，然后用了很久，但是当人们开始用这台笔记本电脑的时候，就没有人在意它的工业设计了，就会觉得它的软件、它的系统怎么样。所以我在想说，如果在未来的，比如说到 VR 的时代，或者是其他科技产品更加丰富的时代，那工业就是在这个消费电子这个领域，那工业设计它的意义或者是目的是怎么样的？或者说它将来和交互领域UI 设计是一个什么样的一个平衡？谢谢。
Okay, very long question.
Yeah, that's objectified. As long, for example, as long as we need to take a bath, we need a bathtub, right? As long as we need to sit 42 centimeters off the ground, 44, we need a chair. So even with the proliferation of all these high-tech objects, which are all going to disappear because it'll just be inside here, or here, or here, that's it. These objects, a lot. There's a lot of industrial design. The dish I eat on, the knives and forks, the dishwasher, the refrigerator, I could go on and on and on and on. And maybe we'll find solutions. Maybe one day we create some sort of magnetic gravitational force, so I can now sit like this and I don't need a chair. Okay, then we wipe out a $300 billion industry. Gone. When that happens, and it may happen, the world will change in a very big way that way. But right now we still need this tripod, we still need some of these things. So there's a lot of things to design. We still wear eyeglasses, I don't know why. I don't know what the hell I'm wearing eyeglasses for. I want a microchip in my eye. But until we get rid of these, people are designing these things. So, I mean, there's a lot of products. I think, who's the designer who said that in Objective Life? Who was it? Do you know? What was the name? No, the designer in the documentary who did the notebook computer, who said everything's moving to UX and IX. Anyway, I think he's just jaded, disgruntled. Seriously.
It's a good one, interesting one. I like wiping out the $300 billion industry. So would you like to ask?
And here we are in a huge design fair with a lot of products.
Hey.
Yes. Hi.
My name is Hong Chao, and
Hi.
I actually met you a couple times in New York.
You look familiar, yes.
And I still have your Garbino on my table.
Really?
Which is an inspiring story. Now I was wondering, what's the trick to, keeping being so productive? I saw you practice from, your skills right from furniture to architecture, which is amazing. And then I just wondering, I knew you had a team of about 30, 40 people. I just
Okay, first of all, my team is 14.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I was wondering how you managed to be so productive, and
I like what I do. I absorb information very, very quickly, and I work very fast. That's all. Yeah, and let me just add to that, and I listen. Because, and let me repeat this. There's some brilliant people in this world who produce nothing. And I know them. And some people that were in part of my life, some of my professors, they were brilliant. But they hated industry. And they hated collaboration. And they hated listening and being told what to do. And they produced very little. So, you know how many times I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm being told what to do, and I gotta find a fine line there between listening, doing what they want, but also doing what I want. And my only trick, a lot of times, I make them think that my ideas are theirs. So they go off very proud that they're part of the collaboration. You know what I mean? Because they want to feel part of the process. So you make people feel part of the process. And a lot of times when I am with clients, they do have good ideas. And they have a lot to contribute. So you have to be very open to this and work together and make things happen. And then you're productive, if you want to be productive. Listen, I had a car company come to me 2 years ago to make concept car. And I said to them, I don't want to make a concept car, I want to make a real car. And they said, okay, maybe we can make a real car. We'll talk to you in about 2 months, and I never heard from them again. But you know what, honestly? I don't want to waste my time making nice drawings, digital drawings that stay in the virtual space. I want to make reality.
Next question. Let's go there.
Hi.
We are living in a world that nowadays still we humans die. Maybe in a few years that will change, but so far we all die. I would like to know, how would you like to be remembered?
You're telling me I'm going to die? Most likely. Yeah, most likely. How old are you? 30? First of all, what do I want to be remembered by? I think I'd like to be remembered that I inspired a lot of people in the world, especially designers. I think I'm what I say, what I write, what I disseminate is inspiring a lot of people versus even the objects that I actually do or the spaces I do. Meaning, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff comes and goes. The physicality of all this will come and go. So, and I also feel that syntax, words in a way, are far more inspiring for creative people than existing imagery, let's say. So hopefully I inspire some of you. And let me just add to the death part of that. You know why the digital age came about? Does anybody know? Do you know why? You think it's a coincidence? By the way, the first code that was ever written, 0 and 1, was in 1892. So it's taken a very long time. It's here so that the human race survives. That's it. It's not a coincidence. Because we've depleted this earth of everything. We've raped Mother Nature of everything. We're destroying the planet. So if you can all of a sudden offer the world using, by the way, digital age uses 1/10,000th of the energy of analog experiences. If you can turn around tomorrow and we spent much more interesting time in the digital age, we can save the planet. And that's why this is happening. It's not coincidence. It's a master plan. I won't get into that, but there's a master plan. The master plan is survival. That's what we've been doing since Homo sapiens came on the earth 100,000 years ago. Survival.
Thank you. One more, Karim, before we go to the next one.
I love your idea about design embracing our current time, the age, digital age. But also, how can we avoid being labeled as very dated design, so it can be out of date easily, instead of like the timeless design, like
There's no such a thing. There's no such a thing as timeless. What's timeless design?
Just to be inspired by the essence of our life.
Let me tell you a few things. Werner Panton plastic chair. You know this one? Everybody knows this chair? Okay? 1966. This chair is still around, right? Beaker sells it, whatever. But it's 1966. It's iconic of the time in which it was done. The technology, the material, the form, the language, the angles, the posture was 1966. And in fact, everything is dated. That chair is not from now, it's from the 60s. It looks like it's from the 60s. Everything dates itself, period. Everything. There's no such a thing. It's a myth, this idea of timeless design, completely. But let me just tell you something. If you tomorrow, you do something that's so relevant about now, it will last like the Werner Panton chair. You know why? Because it marked this time, because it was original. It was an original act. Charles Eames bent plywood potato chip chair. The plywood was the first time they bent plywood in 2 dimensions, done by Herman Miller, right? 1947, the original. So it marked that time. So even if it still sells today, it's not timeless. The chair is from the late 1940s and early 50s. You understand? Okay. So don't believe that this bullshit, this timeless thing. No. You know why I get upset about this? Is because I get that from some clients. They get all nervous because they see something new or radical, or they see an interior and they're a little bit shocked. And what is this going to date itself? Is it going to date itself? You know what I say to them? Maybe. I don't know. What do I know? As far as I'm concerned, it's very much now. Make the thing happen now. And I remember a hotel, my first hotel I ever did was 17 years ago in Athens, Semiramis Hotel. That place until today is TripAdvisor #1, full occupancy, 17 years, and everybody loves that hotel. At the time, the client was so nervous and freaked out and said to me, well, this is pretty trendy, isn't it? It's not going to last. The thing to do is avoid trend. You know what trend is? Style. So if you tomorrow decide, I'm going to make the hotel look like Baroque with a bunch of, chandeliers, gone. That style came in and out, 5 years, gone. If I'm going to make nice oversized Baroque furniture, gone. It came, everybody copied it, everybody thought it was so cool, gone. Yes?
So you have to do something from here that's original. And everything you do, if I do something really original, believe me, it's going to be around. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Karim and Rashid, thank you very much. We have a panel discussion in just a few minutes with Karim, with Sharon Lee, who's the contributing editor of M.A.D. China, and I hope with Dean Haiyan Yu, who we're very much sure will be here. Just a couple of minutes and we'll be starting our panel discussion.